Hey guys, what's up? If you're looking to get into JRPGs because you are a beginner, you've come to the right place. Now, you've probably already read online in several different places and websites to start with games like Chrono Trigger, some of the Final Fantasy games, some of the Dragon Quest games, etc., right? But if you want more, I'll give you more. I'll give you 10 JRPGs that I think are ideal for beginners into the genre. Now, this video is going to include a top 5 I did 2 years ago with 5 recommendations that I still think are pretty solid for beginners, and 5 more that I came up with today. It's also going to be very interesting because you'll be able to notice the difference in quality that I had 2 years ago compared to the one that I have today. Alright, let's begin! Number 10. Tales of the Abyss. You want to get into the Tales series but don't know where to start? You've probably heard some of them can be pretty technical or quite challenging, right? Tales of the Abyss, however, is nothing of the sort. It's a perfectly balanced action RPG that is also available on the 3DS, by the way. It's got everything you need for a solid entry into the genre and the series. A great story with strong character development, interesting plot beats that also include side quests, an enjoyable battle system that isn't too technical but it isn't mindless hack and slash either, a variety of characters to use, and a multiplayer local co-op mode for the PlayStation 2 version. The gameplay in the Tales games is quite traditional. You get to experience a series of scenes, then go from town to town or from dungeon to area, always with an overworld in between. No random encounters here, so you'll see the monsters roaming around and you'll decide if you want to fight them or not. Abyss is one of the most popular tales out there. Being great for beginners is one of the many reasons why. Number 9. Wild Arms. The very first Wild Arms is actually a great RPG for beginners. Most importantly due to its balance and its classic style. It's on the PlayStation 2 as well, but in the form of a remake, but that one is really hard to find nowadays. The original is on the PS1 and on the PSN as well. Now, this is a game that combines science fiction elements with the Wild West, so the story, with that interesting mix of a background, is really unique and compelling. There's only 3 playable characters in the game for those who aren't fans of large casts. Each has a short intro, an entire mission you'll have to do with just them. That way you'll familiarize better with each character. The battle system in this game is plain and simple turn-based but very charming. It also includes the arms system, with the characters having a specific type of powerful fire weapon they'll need to recharge every few turns. There's also character-specific skills to maneuver different with this system in case you run out of ammo. So in the end, it's classic, it's retro, but it's fantastic and very welcoming to beginners. I didn't find this game too easy, but definitely not too hard either. Number 8. Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadows of Valencia. If you're interested in trying a Fire Emblem game for the first time, everyone probably already told you to start with 3 Houses on the Switch. That's a good recommendation, don't worry, but that game is way too different than any other Fire Emblem game out there. Which is why, if you want to start with a true Fire Emblem, but one that isn't too old, too hard, or too easy actually, I recommend the Echoes. This is a full 3D remake of the original Fire Emblem Gaiden released on the Famicom at the early 90s. The story is told through 2 different protagonists until they merge near the end of the game. So you'll be switching from one army to another, but you can do that at your own pace. Unlike the older Fire Emblem games, you get to decide if you want permadeath or not. It has a casual mode, so if a character dies, they'll come back for the next chapter. And don't worry, this mode doesn't make the maps any easier or harder. I think it has a great story with really interesting and unique characters too. So since the gameplay mechanics are greatly balanced, I think it's a perfect gateway for beginners into Fire Emblem. Number 7. Atelier Sophie. So, there are tons of Atelier games out there, right? You want to get into this series and don't even know where to start? I did an entire video about this situation. Just look it up as Erick Landon Atelier on YouTube and you'll see it if you want more recommendations. Today, I'd like to recommend Sophie for different reasons. Let's start with the fact that it's available on several modern consoles: PS4, PS Vita, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Besides, it's the start of a new trilogy, so you don't need to play any other Atelier game to understand it. You've probably heard that these games focus on a variety of gameplay features, like gathering items or using a cauldron to synthesize stuff. That's true, but Sophie explains everything properly and it's easy to understand. The battles I felt they weren't too easy as with some previous entries in the series, but I didn't find them too hard at the start either, which makes this game another perfectly balanced RPG for beginners. Combat is great either way though, relying on ally attacks or guards or even combos. And finally, the story always starts off silly in these games, but Sophie makes it interesting with a few mysterious characters and bits, hence the subtitle of the game. Anyway, it's a solid RPG, so feel free to start in the Atelier universe with this one. Number 6. The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. This one is available on the PSP, PSN, and Steam. It is the very first game in the entire and nowadays popular Trail series. That's why whenever you look for a good entry on this saga, everyone tells you Sky is the best, because all of these games are connected deeply in terms of story and characters. A large script awaits you during the entire game, including a very classic old school beginning. Yes, it can be slow, but the reward for your patience is simply marvelous. It's an amazing game with one of the strongest character development I've ever seen in an RPG. Estelle is one of my favorite female heroines in video games, so I hope you get to like her as well. Now, Trails in the Sky is a very traditional style game, so you'll go from one town to a dungeon or area, then to another town, and so on. There will be an overworld in between, but no random encounters, thankfully. If you like random encounters, that's fine, you'll probably enjoy more the next one on the list. Last but not least, the combat. It's played in turns even though characters can move on grids, but don't worry, it's not a strategy RPG. You just have the ability to position your characters at your convenience because both you and your enemies have a lot of area of effect attacks, so you can play around with that, which is cool because this is yet another perfectly balanced game and yet another great JRPG for beginners. Now, this is it for the new ones. I'll leave you then with the 5 recommendations I did 2 years ago. Number 5. Breath of Fire. Breath of Fire has everything you need to get into RPGs. It's short, it's fun, it has a good story and a good cast of characters. Its gameplay mechanics derive from simplicity with a battle system that's turn-based at the most basic structure. In other words, there isn't anything bizarre or rather complicated, as it is one of the easiest to get into RPGs I've ever played. And that doesn't make it a bad game at all. As the first game in the series, Capcom wanted to compete with other titles by offering a more relaxed introduction to the genre, especially for newcomers to the golden age of role-playing video games. It was also released for the Game Boy Advance as an enhanced port and then on a Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console. So there you have 3 different platforms to play this game. Now the challenge is there. Do not mistake for a second that this game is easy, since that could turn a lot of people away. It's balanced, and that's what's important for many gamers out there looking for a warm welcome into RPGs. Number 4. White Knight Chronicles. Developed by Level 5, the same company who brought us Rogue Galaxy and Ni no Kuni, White Knight Chronicles is an exclusive for the PS3 that delves into the action RPG genre, but using a real-time strategy system, taking it away from your everyday hack and slash. That's right, its combat mechanics revolve around your customized character and a solid cast using several different commands to execute their attacks at the click of one button. Other RPGs share similarities with this battle system, such as Xenoblade Chronicles, but this game in particular makes it so easy to get into that you won't have any trouble at all. Aside from that, you've got a short story no longer than 20 hours to complete, with a basic structure and a neat interface. This game is so friendly that I usually recommend it to newcomers who want to get into more modern RPGs rather than navigate throughout the ocean of retro gaming. So unlike other titles of this company which are a little hard to get into, this is easily an excellent entry into the nowadays niche of RPGs. Number 3. Lunar the Silver Star. Both Lunar games were originally released on the Sega CD that nowadays go for outrageous prices. Then they were brought over the PS1 where they met mainstream success. However, I can only speak for the first one, the classic and legendary underrated Silver Star story, where I first played on the PSP, now called Silver Star Harmony. It was also released as Lunar Legend on the Game Boy Advance. Why this title has been ported and remade for several different systems might be because of its friendly popularity, as it is truly one of the easiest RPGs to get into, still with a solid challenge, but far from being hard or rather long like many other RPGs. Lots of gamers tend to stay away from reading too much text, as games from this genre often have strong character development and tons of fillers within their stories. There is reading involved, and there is character development, of course, they're RPGs after all, but they can't compare to other story-driven giants out there. Lunar, for example, is also met with a pretty cool turn-based battle system that was rather unique for its time, a nice soundtrack, and a welcoming party to those seeking their committed start to RPGs. And for a game available on many different systems, you've got no excuse not to play it. Number 2. Shining Force. Looking to get into strategy RPGs? You've come to the right place then. As one of the major classics in the genre and an all-time pioneer in the RPG industry, Shining Force is often forgotten thanks to the popularity of franchises like Fire Emblem or games like Final Fantasy Tactics. Shining Force is not only an excellent opportunity for you to try your luck in the strategy world, but also a truthful entry there, as the game provides a great but concrete story and expanded gameplay with tactical knowledge kept to a minimum. Just like the dialogues and character development, of course. It's a game that's just full of charm, there on the Sega Genesis and the Game Boy Advance. Also released on compilations such as Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. So there you have it, available on many different platforms to play it, with a welcoming challenge in its gameplay mechanics that's just perfect for newcomers of strategy RPGs or just RPGs in general. Number 1. Is Memories of Celceta. Nowadays, it seems action RPGs have been dominating the terrain when it comes to the mainstream AAA markets. Some gamers have tried to get into them, but ultimately meet with hard titles and frustrating experiences, or maybe met with open world features and really long stories that can easily become overwhelming to them. Well, meet the Ys series. Some of the titles in this legendary franchise can be brutally hard for beginners, or also long enough to make them stay away. Well, Memories of Celceta has a synonym called balance, since it's by far one of the easiest entries in the series, with a very fast-paced and highly addictive combat, a short story that's no longer than 20 hours, even if you do side quests and complete the map, and with an outstanding balance for new players that are struggling to get into action RPGs. This game has everything you need to easily adapt to the genre, and hell, maybe even become a fan of the series, considering it's one of the most iconic and historically important franchises within RPG lore. For now, this game can be played on the Vita and on PC. In any case, this is a perfect entry, in my opinion, for beginners to get into RPGs. Alright guys, that's it. Those are my recommendations for beginners. I have more. I have a video on strategy RPGs for beginners and also obscure JRPGs for beginners. I'll leave those two videos right here, right now, where you can watch it right here, right now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with other JRPG beginners. See you next time!